Hi folks, this is just a quick update of some information I've been researching amongst other things. We're looking at CERN that's been shut down. They dumped the beam, it was overheating. We know it's been involved with cloud formations as CERN. Quite some time ago scientists were gagged. I'll come back to that again. The clouds that are being formed, the weird ones in the atmosphere that we see, I believe CERN's involved with that, and they did actually have their cloud formation program, which we'll come back to in a second. But we're going to start here. CERN actually dumped, it says there, protection dump. BP Earthwatch reported on it, so for the most part it's shut down. It doesn't mean to say it won't fire up again, it probably will. But here what happens is, instead of the beams being completely as a spot in the center like that, when it's at full luminosity, they start to lose it, and then they have to crash it quick because it overheats and it can destroy the tubes by the magnets overheating. In fact, the energy is not concentrated in one spot, it then travels through the walls of the tube. That's inside, not outside. So look at this. CERN gags physicists and cosmic ray climate experiment. What they're saying is that cosmic rays coming in the atmosphere from the Earth actually are responsible for creating cloud formations, which controls the temperature naturally, all done naturally. But what CERN is doing with their cloud chamber, which I've done videos on before, they are deliberately creating and using cosmic rays and creating an atmosphere whereby they can use the energy from those to create clouds. How about that? What I did notice that when CERN closes down, the chemtrails massively increase because they've been injecting lead apparently. But look at that, the chemtrails, the clouds being formed, you can see thousands of them being done, and everybody on Facebook's been reporting on it. So isn't that interesting? When CERN's out of action and can't create clouds through their cloud system, which I'm going to report on here, the chemtrails kick back in again. So something big, something serious is going on here. These are the type of clouds that we're looking at. I call it cloud chaos. We've all seen those stretchy fingers. This was, by the way, just before CERN crashed. You can see some of the effects of these clouds here. They are weird. They start from nowhere and expand out, and this is what I believe they are doing at CERN Cloud. One of the things that is important to note on this is that we have solar flares passing the Earth when CERN kicks in and does this, and I believe this is one of the reasons, and BP Earthwatch says that this is why it overheats, because of the extra energy around the planet that CERN is reacting with. But they can pull in these cosmic rays and create cloud formations, and we all know we never saw clouds being formed like this before. This is live now on SAT-24. We've seen masses of cloud formations and chemtrails around the UK, Ireland and out in the Atlantic. This will spread over Europe. We've just deployed one of the Cloud-busting translators here heading north. That is the effect that we've done. I've got other videos on this. We've had spectacular results. We'll do later deployments further through the day. This will be interesting to see the reaction, because ether has a marvellous effect on the atmosphere, and it's that turquoise blue sky that we produce when we do this. But more on that later. Now, this is the official website of CERN. We're going back to 2011 when this started, and as we've seen back here, we know that scientists were gagged from talking about this, and that's what they're talking about: unnatural interference between sun, solar rays, the atmosphere and particulates. What an amazing piece of kit CERN is as far as interfering with the atmosphere and all sorts of other projects that they've been doing. So this is what we're talking about here. Atmospheric aerosols and their effect on clouds. They say it's poorly understood, but they call it radiative forcing, and in climate projections over the 21st century, although its design is optimized to address cosmic ray question, cloud is the first experiment to reach the demanding technological performance and ultra-low contaminant levels necessary to be able to measure aerosol nucleation and growth under controlled conditions. Basically, the laboratory is also an experiment to do on the atmosphere. This is also to do here with geoengineering and CERN. This is the type of cloud that I believe it is responsible for, and then later they also add the chemtrails, which enhance the circuitry that they've been working with, and the weird effects that it has on weather conditions, storms. Now these pictures are untouched. They've been proven to be original photos. CERN lies directly beneath this, and they add lightning and energies within the cloud above CERN and weird conditions in the cloud formations. These are actual pictures above CERN. CERN Cloud experiment finds secret source for cloud formation. Source is spelt wrongly here, by the way. That's source as in ketchup, not S-O-U-R-C-E. This is back in 2013, 3 years ago. Look at this. I highlighted some here, which is here. Early results confirm that the experimental cosmic rays could increase the formation of particles, although the ones that formed must subsequently grow much larger before they can act as condensation nuclei. But the results also hinted as something somewhat unexpected. First, the rate at which particles formed was much lower than we know they form in the atmosphere. Second, though great care has been taken to prevent contaminants from entering the cloud chamber, some rogue nitrogen compounds found their way in virtually all of the particles. But they are talking about here the ingredients to make. It was thought that amines might have a role in formation of these particulates, but their importance wasn't well understood. Sulfuric acid in the particles comes from the reaction of sulfur dioxide, hydroxide and water in the atmosphere. In order for these clumps of sulfuric acid to grow, a helper needs to keep the molecules in the chump from popping back into the gas phase. But don't they spray sulfuric acid? According to David Keith, that's what they wanted to do. All this is fitting together on this big experiment that they've done, which I think is now in full deployment. Now, CERN was at full power when these flares resulted in from the sun projecting as the flares passed our Earth, and we know that CERN kicks up on the cloud experiment. They know that these solar flares can create cloud formations, and BP Earthwatch is explaining these solar flares in relation to the Earth and CERN.
But in these frames, these are the flares that I'm talking about. These are the two sunspots we've been watching for a couple weeks. And you'll see the flares as it stabilizes. Again, you're seeing movement from the satellite cameras. I've seen this several times. They'll do it a couple times a year. Sometimes after an extreme flare, they may slightly tilt the satellite, and they readjust it. It has almost like an automatic balancing system. But here are the flares that I'm talking about. They're going from right there, and those aren't X flares. We've seen them like that. But the last flare, and I'll pause it on that, didn't get to an X flare, but it was long enough and strong enough that we felt that pulse.
Now, unusually, CERN's been running at record power and record times, just at the time that these solar flares were taking place. Now, think about the cloud experiment that they've been doing. They're reacting with solar flares firing CERN up, and by the way, they've been injecting lead. They've had full luminosity, and he'll explain it here.
As we look at CERN now, it's come down off running record power for records amount of time, but they're starting to power back up. Notice your energy is just at 0.45 tera-electron volts at the timestamp now as I'm doing the video, but it's been running at very high power for record lengths of time. Is this part of the effect? We're dealing with the magnetics. Now, here's what we got.
Now, I was going to explain, while CERN has been running, we've had massive changes in the weather conditions and Earth's temperatures, most unprecedented and very unusual, and it appears to be influenced or created by the use of CERN.
Now, here's what we got, a massive dome with high pressure. A little further south, I know it's hot, guys, but we're breaking records all the way across the map. And this is called an atmospheric heat dome. It says there's been a couple of high pressure ridges aloft, which are called bulges in the jet stream, that have prevailed across the U.S. One ridge now is positioned around the western U.S. and the other in the southeast. We've got two sections because they're connected. The western ridge has occasionally expanded a bit more to the north and east, while the southeast ridge, which is the Mississippi area, Florida, has expanded north and west, but only for short periods of time. As this week progresses, we will see a bridging of these two ridges, resulting in one massive dome of high pressure. Guys, you've got to be very careful and keep yourself cool and hydrated.
Now, what we're looking at here, this is the Earth, sun side to the right. These are satellites, and that's the moon. We are seeing a shift in the poles of the magnetic field. There's absolute chaos on Earth's magnetic field, and this always happens without exception when CERN goes to full power. Now look at this scenario. We've got solar flares, we've got CERN at full power, and now we've got Earth's magnetic field being toyed around with and destroyed and worked around till it almost disappears. Now, the Earth needs the magnetic fields in place to protect us from solar flares. It's an incredible thing that they're doing at the moment, but it's also seriously affecting the weather, and that's what we have here.
Also, the moon is depicted there. But notice your tilt here. Now we're up into the later hours of the 20th. Field lines are reconnected, but they're not quite right, guys. They're not streaming behind the planet. Now, I saw this twice before as far as this type of disruption, and it was usually followed by a magnetic field reversal. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen this time, but this disruption. But we are getting smaller flares that are intense, and the Earth magnetic field has changed in the last few days as far as the magnetic connectivity point between the Earth and the Sun. Now, look at these two images. One last month going back to the 18th of June, and look at the angle of the blowback from the Sun. You see where I've got the arrow, and I've got it centered on both of the closed field lines, which are indicated in red.
And so he's there explaining the differences in the Earth's magnetic field. It's tilting to the right, which normally it would be upright in relation to the Sun. But now we're seeing that CERN is having a critical role with regards to the weather, the magnetics, and the injections they're doing. They're putting lead inside CERN. Amazing things that I believe we are seeing changes in the weather as a result of the CERN Cloud experiment, and that's why we saw more chemtrails appearing when CERN broke down. They are doing something in the atmosphere which I believe could be catastrophic. Now, something else that's been involved, 2014, this is after CERN's cloud experiment, there is the highest record of satellites being launched ever. So 92 I think were launched in 2014. That's an incredible amount of satellites, many of them to do with weaponry systems, and UK and France came together with David Cameron, thank goodness, who's disappeared from 10 Downing Street, but they were working together, and we know that they've all been working together on CERN and also these agreements with satellites. Many of them are launches to do with weaponry. These are all the different satellites which we have coming up or have already been launched. Amazing amount of them, it's incredible. So here we have, for example, some of the rockets that have been sent up. Dozens and dozens and dozens of them have been sent up. Some of them, well, an awful lot of them under the control of the military, which is to do with weaponry, and they say weather satellites, but so many rockets and satellites that have been done in secret. They never tell us in full what it's all about. How about this one? An ionizer satellite in charging ion beam. This is some of the kit and the weaponry that they're putting up there, and we know there are patterns, I've read them, where lasers are put through the atmosphere and actually create lightning, change the weather, and have a catastrophic effect on rainfall. And this is the sort of equipment that they've got right now, amongst other weaponry that you can see on satellites. So I just thought I'd update on this, but this is information that I've been finding out recently, and when other people confirm it in their videos as well, it becomes more convincing as regards what is going on. On a positive note, we've been involved with the William Reich, Trevor James Constable, Cloud-busting, and the use of ether, which is a perfectly natural phenomenon in the universe, an incredible subject. And the blue in the atmosphere is related to ether, and it's that beautiful turquoise blue that we see that's responsible for many good things in the earth with DNA. Pure blue skies is one of the results of the use of ether, and we have actually created blue skies with the use of ether and the Cloud-buster generators. This was actually the result of 2 Cloud-buster deployments and 2 Etheric Translators, which I won't go into too much detail. This was a result of ether being deployed. Just have a look at this. This was only a few days ago, going from the 19th of July 2016. You can see how the ether holds back this area here. Amazing. Turquoise blue skies were present there. The Met Office and the BBC forecast cold, wet weather coming from the north. The opposite happened, and we had beautiful blue skies and warm temperatures. Incredible. Now, this is what the BBC were predicting for exactly the few days that we had the heat wave that came in with beautiful clear blue skies we've been waiting all year for, and that was following deployment of Cloud-busters. But this is what they predicted would have happened for the same period of time.
What may, the cooler air will win, so any heat will not last all that long as the jet stream gets going again and pushes that frontal system out of the way. Now, given that we've seen twisting and turning in the story over the last 24, 48 hours, my advice would be to watch this space and watch this broadcast again tomorrow. But at this stage, that's how...
So, there you have it. It's totally the opposite effect that they were suggesting. We actually had beautiful warm weather, and these are some positive things that are taking place at the moment, so watch this space.